Good evening everyone, and welcome back to another trip report. Tonight I'm here at Terminal 3 of Toronto Pearson Airport, getting ready to board my WestJet flight to London Gatwick this evening. Tonight I'll be testing out their Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner in economy class. I don't need to visit the WestJet check-in counters at Terminal 3 this evening, as I checked in online and printed my boarding pass prior to coming to the airport, and I'm not checking any hold luggage for this flight. Canadian domestic and international flights departing Terminal 3 use the B and C gates, so that's where my flight will be leaving from this evening. Following a very quick and efficient security screening process, I've now entered the airside part of Terminal 3. Here you can see that the Rethink Terminal 3 renovation project is pretty much complete, with tons of new restaurants and stores all the way through the terminal. Additionally, the architecture and style of the terminal area is very sleek and modern, giving a really nice clean look to the space. There are two security screening points for the B and C gates from the main check-in area, both feeding into this common space with duty-free shopping and food court style restaurants. After passing through that area, I started working my way down the concourse that houses B gates 27 through 41 and all of the C gates. My flight tonight will be departing from gate C35, which is located at the end of this concourse. After passing by all of the B gates, there's an area with more stores as well as a few more restaurants as we move into the circular head of the pier that houses the C gates. Also in this area is a spa, which unfortunately I won't be visiting this evening. Looking at the departures board, I see that my flight, WestJet 3, is still scheduled for an on-time departure at 8:50 p.m. So, leaving me with 2 hours to spare before departure, I'm going to sit here at my very empty and quiet gate and talk to you a bit more about what to expect if you're thinking of buying one of these WestJet economy tickets to Europe. But first, I need to get some caffeine in me for the long night ahead, so a quick stop at the neighborhood Starbucks. Now to start off, I should clarify that the ticket I purchased for this flight is actually considered a basic economy fare. What that means for WestJet is that complimentary checked baggage is not included, seat selection is more expensive than a regular economy ticket, and you don't earn any miles through either WestJet Rewards or any partner airlines such as Air France, KLM, or Delta. So right off the bat, yes, it kind of sucks, but the one big bonus is that it was cheap. This ticket round trip Toronto to London will be costing me just under $600 Canadian. Now for comparison purposes, we'll look at the basic fare against the econo fare, which is the next higher fare class. For basic, the standard seat selection charge is $55 Canadian, while your first checked bag costs $60 Canadian. In econo, the cost of seat selection is $20 less, and the cost of your first checked bag is $30 less. So when it comes to deciding which fare option is best for you, it really depends on what you need for the flight. If you know you'll be taking a checked bag and you like selecting your seat in advance, then the econo fare will likely come out as cheaper. Now enough about the technical details. As you've probably noticed, I'm in the process of boarding the aircraft. WestJet boards their aircraft using assigned zone numbers, where Zone 1 is for premium economy and business class travelers in addition to high status frequent flyer members. The remaining zones are assigned based on seat row, with the aircraft boarded from the rear to the front. I selected a seat in row 23, and my assigned boarding group is Zone 3. Now for a quick look at the aircraft taking us across the Atlantic this evening. We'll be on board this 1-year-old WestJet Boeing 787 that was delivered to the airline in March of 2019. When WestJet first launched their service to London Gatwick, the flight was operated by a very old Boeing 767-300, so the 787 is definitely a nice upgrade. After stepping on board the aircraft, my first impressions are that the cabin is very modern, with nice accent lighting and highlights of the WestJet theme colors. Having worked my way down the aisle, I've arrived at row 23, where I'll be spending the next 7 hours of my life in seat 23A. This is the window seat on the left side of the aircraft. For this overnight flight, a pillow, blanket, and small bottle of water were all provided at the seat when we boarded the aircraft. Now for a quick tour of the seat area, we start with the large seatback entertainment screen, which we'll take a closer look at later in the flight. Just below that is a small pouch for storing any of the in-flight provided reading materials, with a larger pouch closer to the floor for storing any personal articles. In terms of under-seat storage, my large backpack was able to fit decently well, but the space is quite tight. The economy class cabin on this aircraft is split into two sections, separated by a bulkhead that's located just after the wing. Row 23 is the second to last row of the first economy section, so the view from my window looks out just over the rear section of the wing. Additionally, the seat layout on this aircraft is 3x3x3 with two main aisles. This configuration is fairly standard for the 787 Dreamliner across all airlines. With about 12 minutes to go before our scheduled departure time, all the passengers are on board with a very full flight across to London this evening. The overhead bins on this aircraft are quite large, so finding space for everyone's carry-on bags wasn't too difficult. It should be noted that this flight was taken on February 29th, so many people are heading away to Europe for their March break travels. After a quick announcement from the flight crew, the safety demonstration video is underway and the aircraft is pushing back from the gate. The captain gave us some details about our flight plan for today, in addition to the upcoming weather forecast for London. Surprisingly sunny, but with the possibility for some showers, which is more than typical for London this time of year.
In the event of an emergency, you will be recommended to brace. En cas d'urgence, refer to your safety features wallet in your seat pocket for your brace position.
Hey, what do you think, bro? Is it good there or not? I've been good, bro?
Afin d'éviter de vous blesser ou de blesser les autres, faites attention en récupérant vos bagages dans le compartiment supérieur. Always use care to carry on baggage to avoid injuring yourself or other guests. Please note that exit signs on this aircraft utilize this green symbol to identify the exits. This green symbol with arrows indicates the direction to the exit. Veuillez noter que les enseignes de
After starting up the engines, we began our taxi away from Terminal 3 and towards the threshold for runway 24 right. Departing from this runway, we'll be put out to the west side of the airport before making a 180-degree turn back towards the east. After making a long left turn to begin our track east towards Europe, I was able to catch a couple glimpses of the Toronto skyline as we cruised high above Lake Ontario. "10 minutes after departure and with the seatbelt sign still on, the cabin crew came through and distributed complimentary earbuds for use with the in-flight entertainment system. Now for a full tour of the seatback entertainment screen. I love how the whole system is geared towards the destination of the flight, with guides for what to do and where to eat, and generally nice gallery photos to view during your journey. In terms of on-demand content available, there are plenty of movies and TV shows, including new releases, as well as magazines, music, and games. There's also a designated section with kids on-demand content as well. I found the number of different magazine issues available through the system to be really great, which is something that's quite rare, as most airlines will only feature their own in-flight magazine on the system. You can also view the upcoming weather forecast for the destination, and I'm feeling quite lied to as the weather looks to be cold and rainy for the next 5 days straight. No physical menu was handed out for the food service on this flight, but you can view the options available through the entertainment system. On this eastbound journey, there's a light meal served after takeoff with a larger meal before landing, and complimentary beverage service scattered in between. There's also a current news section available on the entertainment system, as well as an About WestJet section including the services that they offer. Wi-Fi connectivity is available on this flight through WestJet Connect, though it is a paid service with fairly steep prices. One of the nice things about this, however, is that you can choose to watch any of the on-demand entertainment content on your personal device by choosing a free connection to the network. This personal device streaming option is available on mobile devices using the WestJet Connect app or on a browser on a laptop. Finally, looking through the in-flight maps, there are tons of different viewing options available, all with incredibly high graphics. The graphics quality is definitely one of my top comments for the system in general, in addition to it having great touch sensitivity and a large display. Some of the different controls around the seat area can also be controlled from the screen, including the overhead reading light and the call attendant button. On the bottom edge of the screen is a USB port for charging, as well as a headphone port for connecting to the system audio. You can also see that the screen pulls out to give you different angles for viewing. In terms of provided reading materials at the seat, we have the safety information card for the Boeing 787-9. There's also an air sickness bag provided, as well as the WestJet in-flight magazine. In the in-flight magazine, there are various articles, as well as fleet information and route maps for WestJet and their partners. There are also instructions for connecting to the in-flight Wi-Fi and personal device entertainment. The tray table unlatches and folds down from the seat back in front, initially in a half configuration, but it can be unfolded into a larger full-size configuration. It's also mounted on rails, so it can slide in and out to be brought closer to you. I found this tray table to be quite small compared with other tray tables on long-haul aircraft, but it's still large enough to fit food and drink, and potentially my laptop. There are also coat hooks located at each economy class seat, as can be found on some other airlines as well. I personally never use these and find them a bit strange, but they are an oddly nice touch. About 50 minutes after takeoff, the light meal box was served. I found the arrangement in which WestJet serves their meals to be a bit strange, as with most other airlines bound for Europe, such as Air Canada, they typically serve a larger meal right after takeoff and a small meal just before landing. WestJet flips this arrangement, serving a light meal at the beginning and a larger meal before landing. Now, when I say that serving a light meal at the beginning is strange, it actually does make a bit more sense. The time right now is 10 p.m., so it's a bit late for a full dinner. I've been on Air Canada flights in the past where we've departed Toronto at 1 a.m. and they've served a full dinner at 2 a.m. Either way, I'm still impressed that WestJet has two different meal services on their transatlantic flights, putting them in direct competition with the other airlines that operate these routes. Now for a closer look at this particular meal service, we have a small vegetarian wrap, along with a pack of sliced apples and a prepackaged slice of banana bread. Now I'll be honest with you, the wrap was not the greatest airplane food I've ever had. The banana bread was fine, and there were definitely some mold patches on the apple slices. I should also clarify that I'm not a big fan of any kind of cold sandwich, so I'm probably a little biased when it comes to the wrap. However, as for the rest of the food box, there's definitely room for improvement. We're about 1 hour and 40 minutes into the flight now, all the meal items have been cleared away, and the cabin lights have been dimmed so passengers can try to get some rest. After taking a quick walk around the cabin to stretch my legs, I'm also going to curl up in my seat and try to get some rest. After a very restless 2 hours of on and off sleep, I'm awake again and the cabin lights are coming back on for arrival. We still have just over 2 hours before we land at London Gatwick, but they're preparing to serve the main meal service of the flight. When trying to get comfortable to sleep, it's fairly difficult as the seat surface is quite hard. In terms of space in the seat, there's about an inch more legroom and a half-inch more width than in the economy class seats on this version of Air Canada's 787. For the final service of the flight, the cabin crew first came through with the complimentary beverage service, in which I opted for water, followed by the hot meal service of the flight. The options for the hot meal were scrambled eggs with bell peppers and fried potatoes, or beef and potato hash. I opted for the beef and potato hash, which I have to say was much more delicious than the first meal service of the flight. This meal tray was served with a yogurt pot, some fresh fruit, and a small chocolate croissant. Also provided with the tray were salt, pepper, and ketchup, along with a packet containing plastic cutlery and a serviette. With just over an hour left before arrival in London, the meal trays have been cleared away and you can just see the sun start to rise ahead of us. With this newfound daylight, I'll use this opportunity to show you a couple more features of the seat. In terms of available recline, it's fairly limited, maybe an inch or two at the most. Each seat surface is leather covered and fairly firm, as I noted earlier, which makes it uncomfortable for trying to sleep. The seat does have an adjustable headrest, which can slide up and down to accommodate different heights, and also has folding sides for extra support. The windows on the 787 Dreamliner are notoriously large, letting in tons of natural light. Instead of using standard pull-down window shades, they have adjustable dimmer technology to allow for 5 different levels of lighting. Though the dimmer takes a while to activate, it is very effective in blocking out light and great for blocking some light while still allowing you to view outside. For comparison, here you can see the difference between the fully open and partially dimmed settings on the dimmer. There's also an AC power outlet located underneath the row of seats near the floor, though looking down here was a regrettable decision as it's in desperate need of a good vacuuming. The outlet's not very easy to access, as without a direct line of sight, you kind of just have to feel around for it. As I mentioned earlier, there's also a USB charging port on the bottom edge of the entertainment screen, though the charging speed is much slower than that of the AC outlet. Post-breakfast, I wrap myself in the blanket again in hopes of a few more minutes of shut-eye. Right now, we're cruising just off the west coast of England, and the cabin crew brought through some hard maple candies. Both the natural and artificial lights throughout the cabin help make it feel really spacious and airy, and the soft colors from the ceiling lighting add a nice touch as well. Overall, I'm a really big fan of the ambiance in this cabin, which is a feeling that I've also had on KLM and Air Canada's 787 Dreamliners as well.
It's almost an hour early, about 53 minutes early.
With an announcement from the flight deck, the captain notified us that we would be arriving in London about 53 minutes ahead of our scheduled arrival time, and that we would be beginning our descent towards Gatwick Airport shortly.
Flight attendants prepare for arrival.
The seatbelt signs are back on now with 33 minutes until we touch down. Under the flight info section on the seatback entertainment screen, you can also view up-to-date connection information, which I believe is specific just to passengers traveling on this flight.
For on each side of the aircraft, please take a moment to find the exit closest to you along with all other exits. We certainly hope you've enjoyed your flight this evening. Thank you for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Gatwick. The local time here is 8:20. Wow. And as we next to the gate...
It appears that our early arrival time in London has stunned our cabin crew members as well, but it's certainly a welcome surprise. WestJet operates out of the North Terminal here at Gatwick Airport, so that's where we'll be parking today. This airport is divided into just two terminals, respectively named the North and the South. After deplaning, I'm headed first to passport control as the UK is my final destination for today. It appears that there is a secure area for making onward international connections, even those departing from the South Terminal. After passport control, I'm now on my way to the exit. I'll be taking an expensive taxi up to London this morning as Gatwick Airport is located quite a distance south of the city. Now for a summary of today's events, one of my favorite things was how cheap this ticket was for transatlantic travel, while still providing full service amenities like 2 meals, including complimentary alcohol. I loved how modern, spacious, and bright the cabin interior was, though the area around my seat was in pretty rough shape and obviously hadn't been cleaned. Also, the quality of the first meal service wasn't great, which though appreciated begs the question of if it's really worth it. And finally, Gatwick is much more inconvenient than Heathrow when trying to access the city, which is definitely a loss for WestJet. Overall, WestJet provides a cheap alternative to Air Canada or British Airways when traveling to London, as they aim for budget airline prices but offer many of the familiar comforts of the flag carriers. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button below, and I'll see you next time.